All right, we're on to problem 630, and in 630 we're going to talk about customer lifetime value. And so, at a glance, this problem looks kind of scary. We've got a lot of algebra going on. We've got formulas, but it's really not that bad. And so, what this is, so we're looking at different customers. Customers we have, or we're going to keep them for a different amount of period. We're going to, they're going to be retained for different periods. Each customer is going to have a different margin on how profitable they are. Each customer is going to have a certain cost to serve, kind of like we looked at in some of those earlier problems. And so what we're going to do is, it's essentially, if you remember back to finance, is as a net present value calculation. So we're just going to look at, hey, how much does the customer cost? So what the margin is. We're going to look at how long we have the customer. We're going to look at the additional cost to serve them. How much retention, what our retention rate is with that, and then also our cost of capital, which is just our business's cost of money, essentially, is what that is. And so we're just going to plug those into a kind of a traditional net present value formula to come up with a customer lifetime value. And so in this, we have KEM companies begun studying their customer lifetime value. So then it gives us information. So we have 4 different customer types. We have their acquisition cost. We have so the number of years that we're going to have them. We have a retention rate. We have their margin, their profit margin right here, and their additional cost to serve. So let's go ahead and start plugging that in. So we have customer 1 for all 5 years at a 275 profit margin. Let's see, they don't have any additional cost to serve, so that's nice. It gives us a retention rate of 1, so 100% retention rate. And then our cost of capital. And so, since this is kind of a time value of money function, we have to take into consideration our interest rate over time. And so it says that our cost of capital is 10%. So we want to do 1 plus our rate, which is 10%. And then what we want to do is we want to raise that over whatever year that we're in. And so put an equal sign here in front. And there we go. And so what that's going to tell us is that's going to basically, we're going to use that interest rate to discount these values. So the higher the interest rate here, the more we're going to discount these dollar amounts. And so that makes sense. So, $275 5 years from now is going to have a high discount rate, which means it's going to be worth a lot less than it would be if we have $275 today. So now we just put in our formula, which says we want to take our profit margin and we want to subtract the cost to serve. Then we want to multiply that times our retention rate, and then divide that by our cost of capital. Just carry our formula down. And so we have a customer lifetime value of $1,042. So let's do that, just the same thing with the rest. And so customer 2 has a higher $300 profit margin, but nothing for years 4 and 5. They don't have any additional cost to serve. Their retention rate is 100%. And then their cost of capital is just going to be the exact same thing, so we can just carry that down. And we can just copy our formula. And sum that up. So that's customer 2. So customer 3. So $275 for all 5 years. No additional cost to serve this customer. But their retention rate is different. So they have a retention rate of 0.9. So we start off so our formula for retention rate, we're going to take our retention rate, which is going to be 0.9 for this customer, and we are going to raise that to the time. So that's going to be right here. So year 1. It helps to put an equal sign here. So whatever year it is, minus 1. We can just copy that down and say, okay, so that it comes out to be, so they have a 0.9 retention rate, but in year 1 we have 100%. And so that makes sense because this is the current year that we're working in. So if we didn't keep this customer, then they wouldn't even be listed here. So, we keep them in year 1, and then we have 90% remaining in year 2, 81% remaining in year 3, 72% remaining in year 4, and so on. So now we can copy down our cost of capital. Actually, let's copy it down from here. And then we can copy our formula here. Alright, so the customer lifetime value for customer 3 is 870. And then last one, customer 4. So their profit margin actually changes, so it's expected to go up in year 3. But we do have cost to serve them. And so their retention rate is 100%. And let's copy down our cost of capital. Let's copy down our formula. So, okay, we've done all our calculations, and so now we have the customer lifetime value for all 4 customers. Okay, so it wants us to discuss the differences essentially between all the different customers. And so comparing customer 1 to customer 2, and so customer 1 has a value of over 1,000 and customer 2 has only 700. And so just to note, so this formula, this is all before that we subtract out the acquisition cost to actually get this customer in the first place. So it's going to cost us $1,000 up front to get this customer. And so if a customer has a lifetime value of less than 1,000, then that customer, that's a loss to us. And so it'd be better for us not to spend that $1,000 to get them, because we're never going to get our money back out of it if they're not over 1,000. So customer, we can see right off the bat, customer 2 and 3 are lost causes. And so the difference between customer 1 and customer 2 here, so customer 2, hey, they have a higher margin, but we only got to have them for those 3 years. So because we have a longer period of time with customer 1, we're going to have a longer lifetime value for that customer. And so the customer 1 and customer 3, so they have the same profit margin, except that customer 3, we have a lower retention rate. So we start losing these customers as we go along. And so even though there's the same number of periods, same number of margin, because customer 3 is going to kind of dwindle away, or customer type 3 is going to dwindle away, that they're going to have a lower value than customer 1. And then customer 1 and customer 4 are very close. And so the difference being here is, so we have customer 4, so they actually increase their profit margin down the road, but they also have some cost to serve them up front. And so because of those additional costs, over time, that's customer 1 is still going to show it better. However, if we were to run this beyond 5 years, because the cost per customer tend to drop off, but their margin stays higher, then over the long run, if this were to run out to 7 or 10 years, the customer 4 might actually be the best customer here. So it all kind of depends on what the assumptions are. Alright, so in part C, we're looking at the same customer lifetime value for an infinite horizon. So we're not ending it at 5 years, it's just going to go on forever. And so the formula for this is we want to take our marginal cost minus the additional cost to serve, and divide that by our cost of capital plus our retention rate. Let's see. 1 minus our retention rate. Okay. And last is customer 3. Guess they're being nice to us, since customer 4 actually has a different margin that changes, but We'd probably just use like an average there. But anyway, we don't have to do it, so we don't have to worry about it. Alright, so in this one we want to subtract out the initial acquisition cost. Oops. Let's see. Oh, I think I used the wrong information. Wrong line for customer 3. I did. So customer 3's. Oh, I didn't plug in the right retention rate. It's actually 0.9, and this formula takes it to 0, so their actual retention rate is 90%. So, okay, that's the problem. That looks better. Okay, so part C, we're looking at the customer lifetime value over an infinite horizon. So they're just going to go on for years and years and years. And so this changes, who is the most profitable customer. For example, we went from customer 2 being the least profitable to customer 2 being the most profitable. And so, the reason they were least profitable under this scenario is because we only had them for 3 years. But, really, overall, they look the best. They have the highest profit margin, no cost to serve, and 100% retention rate. And so, by keeping this customer, which on the short term isn't a great deal, but over the long term, it's a very good deal. They have a significant higher, customer lifetime value. So how long you plan on keeping customers is really, really important. And so part 4 says, okay, how does this information on the customer's estimated lifetime value help a company gauge its customer acquisition and loyalty programs? And so, by understanding what it costs to acquire a customer and how profitable that customer is, and also how long you plan on keeping them or can keep them, is going to, make a significant difference. And so, the idea of loyalty programs and keeping customers around can be a huge deal. Normally, because the cost to acquire a customer, like you can see in this case, is very high. So, this scenario cost $1,000 to acquire a customer, but we're only looking at, $275 to $300 profit per year. So since it costs so much, we want to retain those customers. So I was thinking, you look at customers like Amazon or Netflix, and so they have a lot of their marketing, set up like Amazon, with Amazon Prime. Hey, if they can lock you in, to a program like that, and you're liable to stay around a little longer, that's a really good deal for them. Customers like Netflix, they spend a lot of their time advertising towards people that are they're younger, and they're their teens, their 20s, because they have the opportunity to keep those customers a lot longer. That's probably one of the significant reasons why Netflix pushed so hard to go online streaming and not just send out DVDs. They weren't concerned about alienating those 50 and 60-year-old customers, primarily because how long are those customers going to be around compared to, locking up a customer that's in their 20s? So, so anyway, understanding, your customer profitability, and how much it takes to get a customer, is really important for information. You always, read articles, on like entrepreneurship and starting businesses. And one of those main things is understanding your customer. And so this kind of puts the numbers to that. It's, hey, demographics of your customer is important, not just because of what their likes and dislikes are, but potentially because of how long and what kind of retention you're going to have that customer. So anyway, this is kind of an interesting problem. A lot of data, but has some very significant impacts on on how you set up your customer service programs, essentially.